SCP-2774. SCP-2774 is a memetic anomaly commonly referred to as the Slowburn Sloth. It isn't a physical creature, it's an image, specifically a humanoid figure in a cartoonish sloth costume, often found lurking in the background of photos, movies, and media. Once someone views this image, the anomaly takes hold. Victims don't notice any immediate symptoms. In fact, the effect takes anywhere from 40 to 100 hours to activate. But when it does, the change is terrifying. The subject's higher brain functions begin to deteriorate. Emotional range, memory, reasoning, all gradually erode. The person becomes passive, almost puppet-like, losing the ability to think or communicate in complex ways. Each day there's a brief window, just over 2 minutes, where the victim regains clarity. Most describe overwhelming dread, awareness of their mental decay, and an intense desire to die or be freed. The Foundation's only countermeasure is early identification and total sensory isolation of infected individuals. All media is now scanned and filtered to prevent accidental spread of SCP-2774 images. It's not the sloth that's deadly, it's the idea. One moment of eye contact and your mind becomes a slow-motion collapse, leaving you conscious, but fading forever. SCP-428. The crowd. SCP-428 appears to be a densely packed group of people, all standing close together. But this isn't a normal gathering. It's a single, collective organism with a hive-mind intelligence. Any human who comes into contact with the crowd risks being absorbed. Victims become indistinguishable members of the group, losing their individuality and sense of self while still being physically alive. What makes SCP-428 especially dangerous is its ability to learn and adapt. Each person it absorbs adds to its knowledge and skill set. If it takes in a doctor, it becomes medically capable. A soldier, it learns combat techniques. This means the longer it survives, the more formidable it becomes. The crowd is able to disguise itself in public areas, mimicking human behavior until a target is isolated. Once someone is absorbed, their friends and families may not even realize they've been taken until it's far too late. Containment involves isolating the mass in a secure facility and preventing any physical contact with civilians or staff. The Foundation uses separation barriers and limited observation to control its spread. This is a walking intelligence network with zero empathy, and the more it grows, the more unstoppable it becomes. SCP-4666. SCP-4666, known as the Yule Man, is a humanoid entity that only appears during a specific time of year, between December 21st and January 1st. It targets isolated families living in cold climates, usually those with children, during what are known as Weihnacht events. The entity resembles a tall, emaciated old man. It breaks into homes silently while victims sleep, systematically murdering adults and abducting children. Survivors often find horrifying gifts left behind, twisted toys made from the remains of family members. These creations are disturbingly well-crafted and show knowledge of anatomy and engineering. SCP-4666 seems to appear without warning, bypassing security systems and locked doors with ease. There's no confirmed method of stopping or slowing it. What's worse, there are historical records of nearly identical events going back hundreds of years, suggesting it may be immortal or outside of time. Because of its unpredictable nature, the Foundation can only prepare for potential incidents, not prevent them. Emergency response teams monitor regions where previous attacks occurred, especially during the holiday season. SCP-4666 turns the warmth of winter into a waking nightmare. It's the kind of threat that haunts not just homes, but traditions, holidays, and entire generations. SCP-6096, the Blanket Ghost. SCP-6096 appears as a small humanoid figure permanently draped in a white cotton blanket. No one has ever seen what's underneath. What makes this SCP so unsettling is the intense psychological compulsion it triggers. Any person who sees SCP-6096 becomes obsessed with protecting it. They refuse to remove the blanket, allow others to harm it, or even leave it unattended. This effect is involuntary and overrides personal safety, orders, or logic. Occasionally, SCP-6096 begins walking in a straight line, its target unknown. The real danger starts when it begins one of these movements. Anyone who witnesses it in motion gains knowledge of its target, and they too become compelled to assist. This collective fixation builds rapidly, sometimes causing widespread breakdowns in control. Containment is focused on minimizing exposure. The Foundation uses tranquilizers, isolation chambers, and strict rotation of staff to prevent psychological entanglement. If SCP-6096 starts moving, protocols are activated to intercept and redirect it without escalating the obsession among observers. Though it moves slowly and appears harmless, SCP-6096's true threat is in how it hijacks the will of anyone who sees it. It doesn't need strength, just your attention. SCP-2718. What happens after death? SCP-2718 is classified under one of the most restricted containment categories due to its nature as a cognitohazard. The anomaly isn't a creature, object, or location, it's information, and once you know it, there's no going back. SCP-2718 suggests that death, as we understand it, doesn't bring peace. Instead, consciousness persists. The body rots, but the mind remains fully aware, experiencing every moment of decomposition, every sensation without the ability to move, scream, or stop it. This goes on indefinitely. The Foundation discovered this through recovered documentation involving a high-ranking official who was resurrected using anomalous means. His horrifying testimony described this eternal decay. The knowledge alone, what he remembered, was contagious. Anyone who reads the full document or understands the concept in detail becomes subject to the same fate after death. Because of its memetic nature, SCP-2718 is kept under the highest information lockdown. Only top-level personnel may access redacted versions under supervision. The file is constantly moved, re-encrypted, and surrounded by anti-memetic countermeasures. SCP-2718 is not a creature to be fought or a virus to cure, it's a truth. And sometimes truth is more terrifying than any monster the Foundation contains. SCP-4885, SCP-4885, known informally as Find Him, is one of the most lethal infohazards in Foundation records. It takes the appearance of a tall, eyeless humanoid dressed in a red and white striped shirt, blue pants, and a beanie, strongly resembling the fictional character Waldo. Here's the catch. SCP-4885 kills anyone who knows where it is. Literally. If someone discovers its exact location, whether by seeing it, reading coordinates, or even inferring it logically, SCP-4885 will instantly teleport inside their body, tearing its way out and killing them in an excruciatingly violent fashion. Even worse, the remains left behind become SCP-4885-1, corpses illustrated with cartoon-like characters. These bodies act as secondary triggers. If someone locates one of these SCP-4885-1 instances, the same effect applies, they die the same way. This recursive hazard makes containment nearly impossible. The Foundation employs decoy sites, misinformation campaigns, and random relocation protocols to keep knowledge of its location limited to a single, isolated individual. No electronic records are permitted. SCP-4885 is not hunted, captured, or studied in the traditional sense. It is avoided. Its lethality comes not from proximity, but from knowing too much. It's not a question of where's Waldo, it's who just found him and died. SCP-3114. Wouldn't it be chilly? SCP-3114 is a fully animate human skeleton. Roughly 1.6 meters tall and weighing about 30 kilograms, it's abnormally dense, physically strong, and completely self-motivated. The skeleton's default behavior is aggressive and highly territorial, but it also displays an eerie, almost playful intelligence. When SCP-3114 sees a human, it immediately charges and begins what the Foundation describes as a harvesting routine. It violently subdues the victim, usually by the throat, and begins stripping away their skin, muscle, and tissue. Over several hours, it attempts to stretch the remaining skin over its own body like a suit. Once the disguise is complete, SCP-3114 will stand motionless until the disguise begins to rot, at which point it resumes its hunt. Despite this horrifying behavior, SCP-3114 is not constantly violent. When not engaged, it's known to interact with objects in its cell, perform repetitive motions, or sit perfectly still for hours. However, any direct visual or physical contact almost always triggers aggression. Containment involves a reinforced steel cell, visual dampeners, and remote monitoring. Personnel are forbidden from making eye contact with the entity. SCP-3114 is essentially a brutal predator, obsessed with wearing humanity, truly a walking nightmare. SCP-3010. Casual Absent Paranoia. SCP-3010 is not an object or a creature. It's a spatial anomaly triggered by specific conditions. It doesn't live in one place, but rather activates inside environments that match a pattern. Quiet, fully furnished buildings with at least 500 square meters of space, often resembling a lived-in home. When conditions are right, the anomaly manifests through paranoia, sensory hallucinations, and eventual spatial distortion. Individuals exposed to SCP-3010 begin to believe they are being watched. They'll avoid windows, mirrors, and even reflective surfaces. These symptoms grow worse over time, leading to insomnia, extreme anxiety, and eventually a total break from reality. The anomaly has been observed to physically change the environment. Rooms extend beyond their normal size. Hallways loop. Doorways vanish. Victims become disoriented and often disappear entirely, even when under surveillance. Those who survive describe someone else being present, something not visible but always nearby. Containment isn't about locking SCP-3010 away, it's about preventing conditions where it might activate. The Foundation has protocols to identify high-risk environments and deploy psychological screening tools to detect early symptoms. SCP-3010 exploits familiarity and comfort, turning normal homes into shifting prisons. It's not what you see, it's what you feel that makes it deadly.
Subscribe for more interesting stuff. Tell us your experience in the comments.